Yes, thank you. Sure. So today is the launch event of Overtone Sing by Mark and Tongeren. And Mark is looking forward to talking to everyone. So welcome to enjoy us and let us do invite.
All right. Shall I start? Okay. Hello, everybody. It's very nice to, see you would not be the right word, I guess, but to meet you here in this space for the first book launch of Overtone Singing, Harmonic Dimensions of the Human Voice, the book that is about to be available everywhere around the world on January 10th. So to mark that occasion, we would like to do an introduction about this book and about my research. And we are here with Jane, who you already saw, who is here in Taiwan. We are broadcasting from Taiwan, which is where I live already for many years. So welcome people in this Asian time zone. We got some guests from Hong Kong and other nearby countries, I think from Japan. And this is also evening time in Los Angeles and nearby areas. And we've got David Rothenberg, the publisher of this book from Phoenix, Arizona, who is also with us and who will join later to talk about this book, but also really to have a kind of more personal talk how this all came about. He became a good friend many years ago. He is a musician, a philosopher, a professor, and now also a publisher. So it's great to be here talking about a lot of people, I think, and a lot of different subjects. Maybe we have someone else joining, but that's not clear. So I think it's going to be the three of us. What you were just listening to in the background was a session at the Yenisei River, which is one of the largest rivers in the world. And it starts in Tuva, in really the very, very heart of Asia, and where the two main tributaries of the Yenisei come together, we find the capital Kizil of Tuva. And in 1993, 30 years ago, I was there, and I sat at the river with a few improvising musicians of Biosynthesis. I was just beginning my research there. We immediately got along very well. And unlike with most of the other musicians who I kind of more formally interviewed and just recorded, I sat down with these guys. We have been jamming already before in my kitchen, in a place that I rented opposite a jail in Kizil. And then we went to the river, we made a fire, and we had a wonderful session of half an hour. And that's an excerpt from that session. And that's on the Anthology of Overtone Singing, which is now, we're also presenting. It's the companion CD to this book. And you'll find it on one of the many tracks on that CD. This book now came about through the help of many supporters from Indiegogo. I would like to say hello if you're here, and thank you so much for supporting this project. And there are many, many other people that helped to in this research for so many decades. Too many to mention. So let me just again go back 30 years, when I began to get interested in this phenomenon of overtone singing, we're now doing this presentation here live on the internet. Well, I started thinking some years ago how fortunate I have been to begin thinking about sound, about timbre, the colors of the voice, and about overtones so long ago when there was no internet. You type in something now and the answer is there and the videos are there and the texts are there. At that time, it was not like that. So I had to find out a lot of things by myself, just by listening to my own voice. And that's how I started to discover overtones. So I was kind of mumbling, fumbling, resonating with my voice to understand what is timbre, what is color of sound. Making sound like and I did that for a long time, and I kept on wondering, like, why or how is it that the sound changes? Until someday I heard, like, wait a sec, there is something else there in my voice that's changing. There is a kind of harmony or melody shift, and that will put me on the path of overtones. And well, that then became my obsession for the rest of my life so far. Now, more than 30 years, probably almost 35, and I'm still very interested in timbre, but overtones singing became really my thing. So that was a learning process, a pre-internet learning process, and at that time there were not too many people who knew about this, but the border with Soviet Union opened. That is, Russia ceased to the Soviet Union ceased to exist. And it became possible, really, for the first time, for people all over Russia, also Mongolia and Central Asian republics, to travel freely to the West. And so the Tuvans came early on, and many of them traveled through Amsterdam and Holland. So I was really, really fortunate to be at a place where several other people, Maxim Shaposhnikov, a Russian immigrant who moved to Amsterdam, and Bernard Kleinkamp, started to invite musicians and began organizing their tours and concerts. So that was a time when the world music really started to grow, and also Tibetan monks came to Holland, and many people from other Central Asian republics. A very exciting time, and a lot of learning opportunities for people like me who were so interested to learn more about the music of the world. At that time, I then also began to really study these traditions. And what you see here behind me, I'm presenting from my study, where I did much of the writing of this book in recent years. And like this shelves here, and there's a lot of more there. There is all the sources. We will, I can show you a little bit of these sources. That's all the people who previously, or still also in these years, did research in overtone singing, and I have tried ever since that time to really get a good overview of what has been written by people. And by now there is quite a lot, but at that time there wasn't too much. And here you see some of the books that I've consulted in recent years. Not too many titles that are really about overtone singing per se. A lot of other things, but also about overtone singing per se. What you could see here is this very important book, Where Rivers and Mountains Sing, by Ted Levin and Valentina Suzuki. A little bit above, Music and the Myth of Wholeness. Oh my God, I can't read the name, but Tim Hodgkinson. Well, very different things like How to Change Your Mind, or The Jazz of Physics, which was recommended to me also by my publisher, who knows the author. On top of that, you see Om with Chinese characters. It's a book by Professor Zhong Mingder, who is here in Taiwan, who is responsible for my move to Taiwan, because he invited me first to come here, and eventually he invited other people. He was very interested in overtone singing, and he published the first book in Chinese on overtone singing called Overtone Singing as Meditation, but it's all in Chinese, of course. Well, lots of other books, and yeah, you know, it's like this phrase, standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm really so grateful for all these people who did all that work in all these various fields. That informed my my own book, and to give you a little pointer on how to use this book, in case you want to read it or you already have it. In the back, you will find information about various other sources that I'm just talking about. So there's lots of titles of records, CDs, albums, and the bibliography. But there's also a QR code that goes to my website. And I now have to solemnly declare that this weekend I'm going to add a lot of these albums to an Apple Music playlist, and I have an assistant who will help to put it on a Spotify playlist. So if you want to hear overtone singing music, besides the ones that are on this anthology of overtone singing, there you could find a lot about all these other musicians. A good start is the introduction of this book, which gives you an overview of a lot of the different themes. And otherwise, you know, it's a pretty big volume. For some people, it's a bit like, oh, okay, this is like quite a lot. I would always suggest just start somewhere you like. If you're interested in Buddhism and meditation, just read about that. If you're interested in Tuva, Mongolia, just read about that. And you don't need to start with the very first part, which is about physics. We'll have another look at some of these pages of the book later. But now, for those people who are really completely sort of new to this theme of overtone singing, I should show you a little bit what this is all about. So I will take up my tambura, which is an instrument rich in overtones in itself. Rich in timbre, you could also say, but if you listen carefully, you could hear the overtones in there. And I will use this as a background, like many musicians do nowadays, to show you some basic overtone singing, the skill of overtones with two different techniques. So you get an idea here of the skill of overtones, the melodies of overtones. I'm singing one note for those who are really new to this. Again, I'm singing one note, humming one note, and by changing the cavities of my mouth, the size and the shape, particularly of the tongue and the lips and the root of the tongue, I'm creating a different resonance chamber. You can think of this resonance chamber as when you walk into a certain space, maybe a church, or maybe a kind of echoey room, or maybe your bathroom. And then when you make a sound there, or you with your voice or some other sound, it will resonate there. And that space has a certain resonance, which could be a lot of high frequencies. It could be low frequencies. Your mouth is something like that, with the big difference that you can shape it. And this is how we talk, how we speak, by changing the shape all the time. So in the vowels, we hear different spectra of the voice, different overtones of the voice distributed across a wide range of frequencies. So many that you cannot hear them individually. So that's why when I'm speaking, we just hear the words, the vowels. We're not bothered or distracted by all these overtones. But in reality, really, there are so many overtones now going back and forth between me and you, or from me to you. And your brain just very easily and quickly translates that back to these vowels and to the words that you want to hear. Otherwise, you would get crazy if you would hear all these kind of bleeps and frequencies and notes and melodies in my voice. So this is a very effective functioning of our brain. And we need to break through that if we want to hear the overtones. So that's what we're doing, why we make a long note, a droning sound, so that we can then zoom in to all these frequencies that are there. And then by playing with the mouth cavity, which is really how it started for me, playing around, I just showed you a little bit of that, then you can start to hear these overtones and get a completely new perspective of the voice, or another dimension, as I would say. It is almost like adding another dimension in terms of physics. Okay, so I won't go too deep into the details of how that works. If you are interested in learning more from me, I am planning finally to make an online course of overtone singing next month, after teaching here for many years, a resonance course which lasts 1 year. But I will start with some kind of shorter online classes, and perhaps then that will kind of expand into more ways, because there are so many different techniques. What you heard at the beginning, the Tuvens, they do throat singing, which is a type of overtone singing where they put a lot of pressure on the throat, and that's a completely different thing from what I just did. And really, one of the big reasons for me to write this book was to be very clear about all these differences, all these wonderful traditions that we have, including also the Western tradition, which is by now kind of almost a traditional music, because it's been going on for like 50 years, 60 years. But those other traditions from Mongolia, Siberia, also from Tibet, South Africa, Sardinia, they have been in existence for hundreds of years at least, maybe thousands, we don't know. So again, like what I said, standing on the shoulders of giants, it's been fantastic that I had this opportunity to travel to nearly all these places and to study with so many different singers, or sometimes not really singers, not people who identify as a singer. They're maybe a herdsman, or they're maybe a monk, or they're a brother in a brotherhood in Sardinia. And their music is not a music in our sense of the word. And it's a way of maybe praying, or a way of killing time, you could say, or contacting the spirits, communicating with the forces of nature, the spirits of nature. And for people in the West also, I think there's very often this, I should say that in the modern world, people in the modern world, including here in Taiwan, people outside these traditions, very often there is this immediate understanding that this is something that's not just physics or acoustics or something. This is something that goes very deep into asking questions about our existence. So I try to talk about all these things in my book. And I would now like to quickly go through a few themes before we ask David Rothenberg to join. So I prepared this PowerPoint, and have a look at that. And then you can get an idea of what things were new in my research that have particularly shaped this book, Overtone Singing Now. So the anthology you see here, it's also separately available. It's you could find it anywhere online now. If you look at the technique, which is where the book starts, again, this is not where you should start if you want to learn overtone singing or when you want to read the book. It's just the chapter that I thought is best to start with. We need to have a close look at the mouth. And I have to tell you that I spent years and years to redraw this picture. It was very different years ago. And if you check all the literature, you will see that, for example, the tongue they give very different names for all the parts of the tongue. And some will put the center there, and some will put the front here, and some will put the, say, back, or they say root, or they say yet another word. So I've been tweaking that and finally came to this. It seems simple, but it can be confusing to know what people write about that, who are the specialists who write all these articles about phonetics, etc. So I think that's a great improvement. And also these movements for different techniques, this is what you just heard me doing. That's roughly kind of the places where my tongue is moving when I'm singing these high overtones, like so this is always the tricky thing. You cannot see it, but by making these drawings, it can be a little bit more clear. I was also happy to find out that some people commented on my earlier work that it was not enough really musical detail. So in the book as it is now, you will find several pages with all the different techniques of overtone singing, traditional and modern, but with a lot of detail about the pitches, etc. So if you wanted, you could just take your piano and start to tune in there, and you know where to go with your voice. A little bit of a hard nut to crack is what to do with these traditions. Like here you see two musicians from the Altai Republic, which is where I did research in the 90s, and I've been writing about that before, but I haven't been able to go back there for many years. How to do that to talk about the situation now. So part of this really is a report of how things were at that time, when I had a chance to travel to so many different republics, to talk to so many different musicians. And where possible, I updated that a little bit. If you look at Tuva alone, which is such a hotbed for throat singing and all the developments, it's so fresh and continuously developing. Also in the Altai, also in Khakassia, but Tuva is there's just more people there. Just like in Mongolia, it's a very, very vibrant community of singers who constantly do new things. The basis is still the history of what happened up to the 90s and early 2000s. But then it was really interesting, particularly for Tuva, to write about the modern developments and to see how some things completely reversed, like in around 1990 in Tuva, the 80s in Tuva, throat singers were were not valued really. There were people from the countryside who came to town, to the city of Tuva, to perform in the ensemble. They got a job there, but the ladies who did the big roles of singing and of playing, or the other singers, they were the stars. And the throat singers, they complained that their pay was so low and they didn't have much status. That completely reversed in about 20, 30 years time. Throat singers are now often well paid. They get titles, honorary titles from the Republic, even from the country. And they are very visible everywhere. So it was very interesting to update that whole story. Body, mind, and beyond, and the spiritual side, questions about meditation and healing, Buddhism. Those were also pretty hard to kind of isolate from their traditions. And in this chapter, Body, Mind, and Beyond, I look more from the Western perspective, where it is kind of separated from a tradition. It's more like a personal choice, what you do with it. And also in this field, there have been quite a few interesting new stories about people applying overtones. We can't really prove, this is a question that many people have, like, how does overtone singing help us? How is it good for the body or something? That is very hard to say. And I don't know of any research that clearly tackles that question. And maybe it is impossible. But from when you look in other ways, you can see how people learn a lot from getting to know overtones and enriching their voice by this awareness, or by actually really singing the overtones. So that's that was really interesting to update that. Although again, it's in the terms of the research, the academic research, and the proof there is, it's just going step by step, and there's so much more to be done still in that field. Here you see pictured Michael Vetter with the tambura, and I had a chance to learn more close with him some 20 years ago, and I realized when, even though my technique of overtone singing was fine, etc., I realized that I could learn so much more from him in terms of how to be an artist, what to do with music, what do you want to express, and what does it all mean, really. He had some very profound views on that. Unfortunately, I talk in the past tense because he passed away 10 years ago. But he's been a tremendous influence on my thinking about overtones. It began, his influence as an artist, around 1990 when I discovered his music. But then he turned out to be such a very interesting thinker, educator, and someone who had one foot in the East and one in the West, after studying Zen very intensively for 10 years. But he kept on putting art at the center of his existence till his last breath. So it was very inspiring. But those last years also, he, well, towards the end of his career, actually already before when I began studying, I discovered a bit late that he has this fantastic collaborator, Natasha Nikaprelevich, who also changed his probably partly his own performances and his own thinking, and who brought her own fantastic physicality into the performance. And that gave me a chance, by getting to know her and seeing what she could do, to really put more attention on the role of female voices in overtone singing. There are so many women usually in workshops. There are a lot of women interested in overtone singing and using it in all sorts of ways. And in terms of the artistic side, she is a great example. And she did a lot of interesting projects on her own, solo, or with Michael as duo transverbal, and in other combinations. So to talk about the possibilities of the female voice was an important aspect to emphasize. Sorry about my throat. And meanwhile, of course, many of you have heard about Anna Maria Hefele, another female singer from Germany who also shows with impeccable technique, but also great musicality, what you can do in a very different way than Natasha. But both show how the female voice, although it has a slightly less range because the voice is higher and closer to kind of the ceiling of overtones, they do a lot of fantastic things. And they are great examples for women who want to learn overtone singing. And also there have been traditionally these female singers in South Africa. I'm so grateful to David Dargy, a professor and a priest from South Africa. Well, he's Irish, but he lived many years in South Africa, and I've been exchanging a lot of emails with him, calling him, video conferencing with him over the last few years. He's in his 80s. He's old, but still very much alive, and he's got a lot of fantastic stories of his work in Africa for decades, but also really, really in-depth knowledge about these traditions. And I think under his kind of supervision also, when he discovered them, he first described this overtone singing in South Africa from the Tembu Xhosa people. It started to come out also, and they started to tour, and he helped with that. And it seemed like a very promising thing where more and more ladies, it's mainly a female tradition, started to take part in these performances and to learn locally. Sadly, when I got in touch with him again a few years ago, he said, most of those ladies have died, and this is a waning tradition now. And if we don't undertake more action, that's going to die out. People are not interested in this. So I hope to play my little part by writing about this, and by also following up with an interview with David Dargy, which will come online later this year. And finding other ways to empower these musicians or to encourage them to go on, because it is amazing what they're doing. It's so totally different from what we hear in other parts of the world, and it would be absolutely disastrous if that just goes away in a generation or two. One other example, female voice, is Sainho Namchilak. I guess she's about to come to Tuva right now. I guess she'll be the first throat singer I will hear after the pandemic live, because she's going to perform here in a few days' time. But she was also the last one I heard in Kyoto, I think, before the pandemic, which says something about her enormous activity in traveling around the world to perform with a lot of different people. She's a very fascinating character and musician, and I'm really looking forward to hear her again. And she's another example of how female throat singing is also really a thriving tradition, even though she's not working in a traditional mold. For that, we have to look in Tuva to Chodura Tumat and her group Tuva Kizi, who have also been very active, particularly in the last 20 years. And Chodura Tumat recently also received this honorary title of honorary throat singer of the Republic of Tuva from the president. So there's really more interest also in Tuva to acknowledge that these ladies can be real throat singers just like the man. Well, I already talked about this, about the meditation and the healing aspects, update of that chapter, and all the different recordings that are in the book's companion CD. What took me many years to accomplish was to go to all the different people and to record them. So now I have a recording also of the the Tibetan monks chanting, also of the Tosa ladies, who I saw in performing in Holland and Belgium, and also from Sardinia, which was not an easy task, because it's quite hard to hear what they are doing and how it works with overtones. I didn't fully tell that story. I'm going to tell it some other time about how I discovered overtones in Sardinia. Another recent thing is the emergence of throat singing in China, and that went together with a kind of scandal, because China claimed UNESCO what is the word for it? The heritage, international cultural heritage tradition of throat singing, of Geumei, which surprised many people, because it wasn't really a living tradition in China. But there were some scattered throat singers here and there, but mostly the impulse came from Mongolia, and that angered Mongolia. There are several fantastic new scholars, a new generation of scholars who work on Mongolia and also Inner Mongolia, so Chinese Mongolia, who've written extensively about it. And just last year, just before I was going to finish my book, they came out with a volume with a lot of articles about this Chinese tradition. And that was really helpful to clarify a lot of those points. So now, on this map of throat singing around the world, we also see Inner Mongolia, Chinese Altai, which before was not there. Buryatia is also on the map now. It's not having a tradition of very ancient times, but in Central Asia and also Kazakhstan, this became something that a lot of people want to practice and started practicing. I'm going to move forward a bit. Okay, we have this one later on. I wanted to talk about, I was trying to debunk some myths in this book, and the New Age myth, that's something that I struggled with a bit. I finally kind of found a way to write about that, like what is really true. There's some people who try to make all kinds of assumptions about the healing powers of overtone singing, or they claim to be a Mongolian throat singer or a Tibetan chanter or something, and they are not. I found that difficult to deal with, but after reading some criticism on my earlier work, I thought, I should criticize that too, and I became more outspoken about it. Now here I have a nice riddle, and then we go on to David Rothenberg. There is this question of what is overtone singing and what is not overtone singing. Here's something that recently popped up on the internet somewhere. It's someone who's saying that also she can do two voices at the same time. So you can check for yourself. Me. I didn't want to play that yet. I need to play it around here. So it's a kind of this, what's the word for that? This kind of the voice or something of China. And this lady says, okay, I can sing two voices at the same time. And everybody laughs about it. Like, okay, this is silly. That's impossible, right? So have a listen.
救救那个艳阳，天哪哎呦！心花水的哥哥，想把那句来唱。风车呀跟着那个东风转呀， 个个惦记着呀，小音乐，风声呀个不停，那个车轮转。
How is
生
that?
命没有下呀，怎么开业？
All right, you get the point. This is one person singing with two voices at the same time. I discussed quite a few unusual kinds of vocal technique, but this one is too new. I didn't include it yet, but it's something to think about, particularly for my audience here in Asia who are watching. I think it's time to introduce our next guest. We're gonna hear his music in the background. Please, David Rothenberg, can you join us? I should add you here. Yes.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing so fine.
Great to hear the whole précis and summary of your book, and I'm honored to have known you all these years and to have published this book. And it's been a long haul. It's amazing to see it out, that we really got this to happen, and it's amazing to have it out there and have all of you joining in to celebrate its arrival to the world and Overtone singing.
Yeah, thanks for supporting that whole thing till the end. It was it wasn't easy, but it's such a beautiful book, and it's not what we expected maybe to happen.
What did we expect? What
when we met?
It's not.
What did we? Yeah.
When we met, we didn't expect anyone would be publishing any books or that anything would happen like this. That was so many years ago when you showed up in my town of Cold Spring, New York, to start doing some overtone singing. And we went to this little chapel by the river. That's this beautiful old building. You were singing inside there, and I don't know what instrument I was playing, but I remember it's a very special building built before there was a town in this place, like I don't know, 1800 or something like that. It was built.
Yeah.
And at that point, this village of Cold Spring was only known because a famous musician lived there.
Not you.
No, this was the year 1800, and this guy, Gouverneur Morris, very strange name, Gouverneur Morris, he wrote this pop song of the day. I guess you could have considered him like the Bruce Springsteen of his time. But the song was called "O Woodman Spare That Tree." And this was like before Yankee Doodle Dandy. This is a mega pop song after the American Revolution. Like, no way you're going to cut down this tree because it has sheltered me. And it's still sung to this day, although not as well known, but it was an early environmental song. And this area in New York State has been super important to the worldwide, I would say, environmental movement going back to the year 1800. And so why am I bringing this up? Because songs, can change the world and make people unified around imagining a better way. And I would have to think when I got first interested in overtone singing was, I think, just like those judges, the amazed judges in that competition we just watched. They heard something they'd never heard before, or at least pretended to. Wow. And this idea that the human voice can do more than we think it can. For me, at least, in high school, when I first heard about this, Tibetan singing and Mongolian singing, like on strange old folkways records in the library in my hometown, that, there was something powerful that any of us might learn to do. And, so I wonder if there isn't some kind of, I don't know if it's healing quality, but sort of magical quality at training the voice to do what we don't imagine is actually there. And this whole notion of overtones is in every voice, everyone talking, everyone singing. Like all music, all singing is overtone singing. But these techniques that you have developed and written about and explained so beautifully push the concept so we really realize that the overtones are always there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that has always been kind of a driving idea or force kind of behind the things I do. You bring them to light with this technique of overtone singing, but I immediately realized they come out of these mumbling sounds I make, and those mumbling sounds, they come out of the vowels. So you need to translate that back. And I think I heard there are some interesting musicians I sometimes hear, and I think like, okay, they're not singing overtones, but I think they probably know that they do something quite precise with overtones, and you can't really tell. So if you go back to this question of how is it playing a role in all of our sound making, you come in a very gray zone, and you're a philosopher actually. I mean, it raises philosophical questions, I think, about what what is true, like of this sound, and phenomenological questions, like what is my perception telling me? So it's possible that you hear overtones in someone's voice without the person being aware of it. So I hear someone singing overtones because I just pick up these overtones, but he or she doesn't know it. Reversely, it's also possible, of course, that I'm singing overtones for people, and I'm trying to bring them out, but people don't hear it. And
I mean, isn't it the overtones that allow us to recognize any person's voice? How do we know if you call me on the phone, you start talking, I know it's you? Is that not because of the overtones in your voice?
yeah, partly, but it's certainly also the grain. This Ronald Barthes, he called it grain de la voix, the grain of the voice.
The
So it's
grain of the
also,
voice. Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, and it's also the breathy quality. Like you have probably a bit more breathy voice than I do. That definitely gives us a lot of information too. But to me, that is also part of this kind of whole spectrum of frequency particles, things vibrating that we used to ignore. You know, we used to think like this is how we speak. Da 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 da. These are the tones, and that is it. And these are the vowels, and this is the text. And now we open up our ears to the overtones, to the grain de la voix, the grains in your voice, the breathiness, maybe some more pressure in the voice, maybe less pressure, and it's all, of course, influencing also the overtone, or it's very often connected to the overtones.
Yeah, I remember one of those Tuvan singers, when Tuvan music got popular around the world and they would travel and thousands of people would come to their concerts. I can't remember which one, but I'm sure you know. And he said, like, I don't even see why people like this music because the only thing that matters is the words and the jokes we're making by using these overtone techniques to really play with the words. And people don't even get the words, and yet why are they even liking the music? Which makes me think about the version by Yatka of Black Magic Woman. That to me is so much better than the original because it's like a magic sound, and you realize that okay, you can use these techniques together with language, like in songs, and in a way, like overtone singing is the original auto tune. When today pop music is full of effects put on the voice, and we know they're kind of machine-like. And so the overtone technique is a way to take the words, turn them into music in this suddenly opening and surprising way that it's a direction for the voice that most traditions haven't taken seriously. But those that have, I think, have often combined it with words, right? Or do you think it's primarily or more significantly a kind of languageless, wordless tradition?
No, it's definitely the combination, and it's for a Tuvan throat singer, to only do the overtone singing melodies. It could happen, but mostly they will always sing some phrases, they have these poetic forms that they use again and again, comparing the beauty of a woman with the beauty of a tree or a river,
Right.
And then they start to do the throat singing. So that is a very very rich tradition in that sense, often with the instruments too, and often these musicians they compose their own songs. There are traditional songs that are passed on again and again, but
Could you imagine it's say entering the world of opera? So an opera singer is singing in this exaggerated way, and all of a sudden starts to do overtone singing on the stage of a classical performance. Do you think that's ever going to happen? They
It
suddenly go.
happens.
Is it
There,
common? Yeah.
no. There was an opera around 2000 that was written, and the composer, he asked the musicians to also sing overtones. But usually, these people are trained in their classical way, and it's pretty hard for them to really become accomplished overtone singers. But then, when you ask them and you train them, they'll be able to do it. So they did that, and that's happening more and more. I think more and more classical singers probably hear the overtones, even when they're just singing Schubert or Verdi or whatever. But also they might apply it in some modern contemporary piece. But that progress is quite slow. There's not many composers who know what to do with it or how to write for it. So I'm looking forward to, many more things that can be done.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm talking to you today from Arizona, where I've come for the world's first ever conference of bass clarinetists.
Okay.
There's actually 300 bass clarinets wandering around Phoenix today. And there've never been so many in any one place before. They've never had a conference like this. And so I decided I would come see what it's like. And in fact, it's all about overtones is the main discussion, like what counts as a good bass clarinet sound. Overtones and technical nerdy stuff, but a lot of it, the bass clarinet is a famously imperfect instrument. Like it's not really going to work. It's very hard. It's not going to play evenly up and down. It's all about overtones. And this morning there was a extended technique seminar where the 10 craziest best bass clarinetists sat in a line talking about techniques, how to play really high notes, and I learned all kinds of weird stuff, like the fingerings don't matter. You just have to hear the overtones. You have to sing along with the clarinet tone in different ways, and you might have a view on this. One thing I learned today is that if you're going to sing and play at the same time, you should put a microphone on your throat, like attach it with a little piece of sticky tape right here while you're recording it. I never thought of doing that. Maybe you have.
Yeah.
Like you attach the microphone to your body right here. That's normal. You do that all the time.
Yeah. Not a big microphone, but these are these flat pieces that contact microphones.
So you just stick it on your throat while you're playing the clarinet, and see what kind of sound you can get out.
Well, that makes me curious, David. What can we do together? Because
I'm going to pull out the bass clarinet right now after my day of overtone thinking, and we'll see what happens.
David and I did play together, like he mentioned, in Cold Springs 20 years ago, and that was a very memorable session for me. I think you recorded it, and I have it somewhere here. And we've been wanting to play together ever since, but
we've been wanting to,
But this
we've
year,
been dreaming of it,
I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen now, but then hopefully it's also going to happen in New York or in Europe, or maybe even here in Asia.
What's the best thing to see in the bass clarinet? Well, you could see it like this.
Well, we'd like to see your face.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're testing the global technology here. Is it going to work? The bass clarinet looks like this. It's big and strange looking. Looks like a demented saxophone, and it's all about overtones, I would say. Okay.
Okay. It's an amazing instrument, bass clarinet. Do you sometimes use it as a drone, really, to do like an overtone melody?
Yeah, a little
Or
bit.
like extended periods of time and doing the circular breathing and
I can't do circular breathing, but I sometimes use it as a drone-like thing, or also sing along like while playing, singing and playing at the same time,
right.
and kind of try and create this kind of double type sound. And also what I definitely do. Sorry, you can just see my eyes there.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Is just play the same thing, repeating a lot low and kind of feeling the resonance. And I have a bigger clarinet, even bigger than this, a contralto clarinet. It's this huge thing. It never leaves my house. And just to play these low notes over and over again, you feel like it's somehow good for you, which leads back to this idea of like, what are the health benefits of overtone singing? Is it just some kind of new age scam, believing that the universe has a certain tone and we're tuning in? I would argue that these kind of resonating sounds are clearly good for us, even though
Yeah.
they might not be this panacea that kind of easily solves anything. Resonating these sounds with the body, I think anyone who does it and puts it into their music, whatever you're playing, like it has this positive quality if you get into it. That's why there's a drone in Indian music. That's why tanpuras exist, not just to think about the tonic, but to feel the value of this. Like clearly there's something to it. People think that that it might have healing or beneficial properties. There's something to that.
Absolutely.
That, it's hard to know, as you said, like who's studied this, what kind of science is there about, of course there is a vast literature on how music is good for our health in different ways. And I think there's an aspect of overtone singing that must, bring us back to the purest, most, basic qualities of music, which is why that it's emerged all over the world. People have figured out there's something good about overtones. It might be hard to make, but it gives us something. So there's got to be something to this idea of the healing qualities. Although people can easily run with it and make stuff up, like so much healing, so much medical information is complete lies, as it has been for centuries. People have always wanted to imagine healing is simpler than it is. In fact, it might be a lot of work. You got to like learn, and that maybe the just fixing somebody isn't the only way that something is good for us.
So do you think it's in the end really about the personal experience? You as a musician, you of course you're not, you're impartial. How to say, because you're a musician.
Mm-hmm.
But do you expect this to change? That those things are going to be that it's possible to prove that, or do we in the end need philosophy? You're a philosophy professor, or do we need other questions to look at this? Is science going to help us out with this, or
Yeah, that's a
not?
good question. I mean, we philosophers just like the questions more than the answers. We have bad
Yes.
answers. We just like ask, what about this? What about this? What about the overtones in all music? But
Yeah,
then, people like to trust science because they have a lot of data and statistics. And I certainly know plenty of people in music who find they move from making music or producing music to trying to demonstrate that music heals us because then society recognizes its value. I was thinking right now of Vera Brandes, the music producer. She produced the Colne concert for Keith Jarrett,
yeah,
famous jazz album. She was 17 years old. She put on this show.
yeah,
Keith Jarrett was pretty pissed off at her because she did everything wrong. And it's, of course, best-selling album of his life. Some
it's a very interesting story.
teenager did everything wrong, and
Yeah,
later on she became a famous jazz record producer for ECM and Intuition Records. And later she said the music business is collapsing. I'm going to work on music and medicine. And now she's a scholar of music and medicine together with her husband. But this year in Germany, someone's making a feature film about the making of the Colne concert.
Okay.
So the actors are playing Keith Jarrett and her. It's going to be like this movie. But that being said, she's someone who wanted the medical establishment to recognize the healing value of music and went after it in a whole scientific way.
Yeah.
To say, like, this way society will believe music matters if we can prove it's good for us. She decided that was worth doing. And I think that a lot of people, when they think, is music going to heal me, they want to hear, like, scientists saying that. But other people will say, I just want to hear the music. I know it makes me feel good. And music traffics in the ineffable language of emotions that we don't know how to talk about. Like, we know it communicates things we can't explain. And overtone singing, because it grabs people, we can't explain this. Then there is something wondrous and like awe-inspiring about that. And I think just last week a book came out about awe as something perhaps being good for us. I haven't read it, but it's in the news this last week. A book by a scientist about how awe is going to heal us. Because some people just want to only know what's going to help and heal, and others don't want to go in that direction. Like, I think Mark and I both are afraid of things that sound like they're healing or that's solving problems with music. We want to do it because it's cool, because we like it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's bad to say overtone singing is good for you, because like, look at like what goes on streaming services, like playlists that all of my students look at. I play them a piece of music, they immediately want to go, okay, what's that music for?
Yeah.
Go, what do you mean, what's it for? It's just interesting. No, we want to know what it's for. Does it help us study? Does it help you focus? Does it make you happy? Does it make you sad? Is it good for breaking up? Is it good for falling in love? Is it good for optimization, working out? Every music has to have a purpose today. And overtone singing, I think if you believe that, you can certainly find its purpose. You can use the purpose-driven life to, like, who wants a purpose-driven life? Do you want someone to tell you this is what it all means, or do you want to figure it out by exploring?
Yeah.
Are we explorers, or
an hour schedule of music for this hour and that hour, and that will keep you going throughout the day and put you back to sleep at night?
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Yes. Yeah.
Ooh, I hear something.
Yeah.
Do I feel better or worse? I don't know.
Yeah, this was you're listening to hearing Paraphonia, one of my groups that I led when I was doing my PhD, which of course related to Overtone singing. And yeah, we spent a lot of time singing together. I mean, it must be said, to as a musician, you need a lot of time to explore your stuff, to explore your sound, your music, and to get where you want to be. And maybe very often you're not where you want to be, or you're not getting there, and just have to keep on going. But in the end, it is so worthwhile, and I think everybody agrees about that. But many people, from a listening perspective, from a consumer perspective, I don't mean that in a critical way, but in a normal way, that so many people just listen to music. They're not performers, and that already can be so healing, meditative, therapeutic, empowering. But to do it, that is wonderful, and we share that kind of that going into the practice, getting out of the practice, writing about that. You have so many wonderful things to say about it. David's got a lot of books. I got them here behind me. You should read his books about music and nature, and animals, whales, insects. It's very interesting to hear you talk about this, David. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fun to be doing this with you and to, think of the whole history we've had thinking about this, and how, how hard it is to learn to perform music, and how very hard it is to write about it, because it's so hard to explain what music is, what it does. People say all kinds of things about it.
Yeah.
One wonderful thing about music is you can take it in and experience it and know nothing about it and be tremendously moved by it. And if you learn more about it, it doesn't necessarily mean you appreciate it more. Like you don't need to know all these things to get it. You may want to know to figure out what's happening, or maybe learn the qualities in music that maybe didn't grab you at first. Like, whoa, why is that interesting? I want to know about it. But you don't need any of that, which is this paradoxical thing.
It is.
I think it's a good time to hear what the audience has to say. Some questions are coming in here.
That's right. Yeah, it is about question and answer time. So if anyone wants to ask, there is among who's writing here from Taiwan. She's in our group Iwoyu that we established a year ago, and we presented our first program last year. She's part of that, and she writes to me, Overtone practice makes me listen better, and by listening better, the quality of life becomes better. I think there are so many experiences like amongst from a personal point of view, and yeah, what we were just talking about is that scientifically speaking, to prove that kind of thing, or to point out where does it come from? Is it really from the music, or is it from something else? Because you had a very nice breakfast or something. And they will always try to have some other answers to the question of how you feel better. But personally, we know this is how it works. Yeah.
Leonardo Fuchs has a question it's in the chat here. It says, okay, Mark, you speak Mandarin, a tonal language. Are there special perceptual skills that the acquisition of this language brings to overtone singing? Do Mandarin speakers sing in a different way?
That's an interesting one. Yeah. I have to say I experienced some frustration when I was coming to Taiwan and learning Mandarin. Well, trying to learn Mandarin, and so many people saying, "Oh, you're a musician. It's easy for you because we've got these tones." Tones turned out to be the biggest obstacle for me, because I still have difficulty to hear the tonal movements. That da 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 da. Those are the 4 basic tones, and then there's the kind of neutral tone. That's 5. So, for my personal point of view, my my musical knowledge, it's kind of even seemed to be in the way. It seemed to kind of obstruct me to understand Chinese, or it just I lack an understanding of these tonal things because my focus is so much on overtones. And if you reverse that, if you look at how people speak here, then you could say, well, there is something kind of not natural to hold a tone, and the language is here necessarily very tonal. So if we have a recitation in a church or something in Latin, it will it will be on a single note. If someone recites here, or it's kind of singing already with the notes in there, so to stop that flow and then to listen to the overtones, it's kind of counterintuitive to the Chinese way of speaking, the Mandarin way of speaking.
Does that mean when they hear musical tones going up and down like this, they start to hear it like language?
They have very good ears for tones, and well, it's not. It's again like what you were just saying about what normal people, how they experience music, how normal people speak here. There is that musical dimension, but I know from musicians like, oh, they can very quickly hear it's this or that interval, and I think a lot of people here they have a sharper hearing for intervals. It's very easy for them to do this do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do when they hear notes. So yeah, they have, and they have a certain absolute pitch is also stronger. It seems among Chinese speakers. So they just know that pitch is a C or a D or whatever. Once you train that, you can learn that because your language is already very structured in that sense. I don't think that makes any difference for working with overtones. The overtones are just this other dimension, and not necessarily something that you're closer to or further away from. The biggest struggle here is this R or L distinction. And the retroflex tongue, like in Taipei, 中国人有这样子的说话. They talk with this retracted tongue, just like also some Indians do. And to explain people how to put your tongue in a certain way, it could be very difficult because our language so much shapes how we move our tongue and our jaw and our lips. So
how much does the tongue matter moving when you're doing overtone singing? Not so much.
Everything. It's
everything.
Like if I do, the main melody change, the note changes is done by moving the tongue.
So couldn't you like overtone sing some language? Either in any language, couldn't you use it as to kind of make things that sound like words, because it's all about the tongue movement? It seems like there's something that could be done there.
Yeah, you can. It's and it happens a lot, you know. If I sing like this, Ni me no ma di la koma ni na mu no ga si de na mu ga le ni ne me du I ne me mo ma ga di la mo. I'm making up language, and I don't know. You can hear the melody, but for me, the melody, there is a melody there all the time. So it can be combined in all kinds of ways, and that's what naturally happens sometimes. You hear someone singing, and you're like, "Hey, wow, there's very clear overtones there." But usually that's happening unaware.
Right, the secret overtones that you find out is in a voice that you've loved to listen to.
Yes, yeah. Are there other questions? I don't know where you found that question just now, but if there's any other question...
it could be in the comments or in the private chat.
Oh, the private chat. Okay. Yeah. So
The private ones are just among us. So the comments, I think, are the same ones that people are commenting, say, on YouTube. Let's see. When did this one come in? Yes, someone, Amang Hong is writing, I'm curious about musically communicating with animals. Can David talk a little bit about your personal discoveries about that? Yeah, well, I can say a little bit about that. This is Mark's thing. So I would say that, there's many animal species, from insects to birds to whales, that are really making music rather than talking. Like the way they use sound is much more like music than like language, because they produce these patterns of sounds. Either they're singing, or cicadas are vibrating their bodies here. They're making these sounds in repetitive patterns with an exact form and structure over and over again. And it has the shape and form and kind of inflection closer to music than to language, where a lot of information is imparted, in complex form, where there's syntax and things like that. And musical syntax is pattern sound about itself. It's not referring to these specific messages. It just has to be performed a certain way. So with that idea about music, animals are doing a lot of it. And so just as we can make music together without knowing what we're doing, we just do it. Like, I don't have to talk to Mark about what the overtones he was singing are meaning. I can just start to make music with him, because I know that music can be formed that way. You can do that with animals, with cicadas, birds, whales. That's the kind of thing I do. And you can just do it. And right away together, you and this creature are making something you couldn't make apart. You don't know what it is. You can't really talk about it. But immediately this meaning seems to come. Look at these things people are saying. Look, frogs are experts from musical patterns. I see there's different chats on YouTube. Some of them are the same. That, and in many human languages describe what animals are doing with sound as singing, as music. And even recognizing a difference, as say with birds. Birds are making calls and birds are singing. Why do we consider some birds sound songs? Because we recognize there's something musical in the way they put forth these patterns. And I think that once you believe that, all these sounds are really accessible. And certainly overtone singing is perfect to do along. Sorry.
once you believe that,
I'm starting to echo now. Someone took off their headphones. And
right.
So what I was saying is that you listen to a chorus of insects, you hear overtones made by these stridulating creatures rubbing their body parts, and then overtone singing can work wonderfully together with all that and find a way in. And so, yes, I would say see, which are the best examples of animals working with overtones? There's definitely birds. Birds are lucky they have a syrinx, two parts instead of one. That we have a larynx, they have a syrinx. They can sing two tones at once all the time. They should be good contestants on that TV show, because they can just do that. And sometimes they do these weird overtone things in different ways. Like the cowbird in America is kind of the Mark van Tongeren of birds, because it makes the largest range, has to move its body to do something like all these overtones together, and they can't do it without moving a certain way. People don't notice it as like beautiful music, but when you pay attention to what it is, it's like this whoosh, lift through the overtone series. And
Wow.
Why they do that, we don't know, but that's what they evolved to do.
Yeah, right. We can't ask them. We just can enjoy it.
We can figure things out. We can test them. What if we change the sound? Do they like it? Oh, they like this weird thing. Why do they like that? What is it they're liking? We change something. You can do experiments without knowing. You can find out that cardinals, a common bird in North America. It turned out if you took a pure synthesized version of their song, which is like pew 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 pew, if you play it on the synthesizer, they like it more than the real thing, because it's more pure, which suggests the cardinal has something like a Platonic idea of ideal forms inside its brain. It prefers a more purified sound than it could ever make itself, because the world is impure. Like they hear this pure sound, And I have run across some people who feel electronic music is like that. It's more pure than the real world and therefore preferable. I don't
Yeah, I remember
agree, but some people have that reaction.
One example of that. You worked with Douglas Quinn or something, who recorded seal waddles in the Arctic.
Antarctic, Weddell seals are great overtone singers.
It's the most amazing recording of animals I've ever heard. He puts his microphones underwater and he put out a CD of that music, and it was just amazing. And I remember once talking to someone who said just what you were saying, like, oh, electronic music is so much better. You can do anything with that. And then I told him about it. I told him, like, there is this electronic music. You listen to that recording from the Weddell seals in the oceans around the Antarctic. It is purely like electronic music. It is so amazing. You listen to whales, you listen to all kinds of birds and cicadas. It is so much often like electronic music.
And because this is what I've written in several books about this very thing, that it's the sounds of insects, the sounds of creatures at the edge of musicality that got us interested in these things. But on the other hand, because we now like these sounds musically, we hear more music in nature than we used to, because we like these crazy sounds.
Right.
Okay, Jane has a question, it says. But what is Jane's question? Let's see where it is. Back here. What is Jane's question? I don't know.
We have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
So that's the last one. Do Overtone have practiced precise scales?
Precise scales, okay. Mm-hmm.
The Overtone series is completely fixed. So I could sing this do re mi like a. You know that melody, right? So that is starting with do re mi, and you cannot change that scale, really. That is just a given, a natural law. That this do re mi is there, and then there is sort of a fa, and then a sol, and then.
Wait a second here. Hold on. Sorry to interrupt, but you're singing do re mi like a major scale out of the overtones. But if you just sing the overtone series, doesn't it get to some notes in between a major and minor third? Like
the do re mi is there, but the fa is a funny fa. It's just between the normal fa and the augmented fa, and then the sol is very normal again. But the la is a very funny kind of la, and also the si is in between. But the do are actually quite precisely do re mi.
That's where they got it from, I guess, the overtone series. But I have a question for you about this overtone series. Is it like a quality of the physical world of air and how sound waves behave, or is it a quality of the human perception of these physical phenomena? Like, does the overtone series work for all hearing animals, or the very idea of hearing, or is it a human way of making sense of these frequencies? I don't know the answer to this. I've always wanted to ask you what you think.
Yeah. I would definitely say it's a law of nature that vibrations work that way. But recently, cognitive scientists have begun to make a fuss about that and saying no, it's all in the mind. And I can't possibly see how you could say it's all in the mind if you think about the world. Millions of years ago, if a bamboo piece of bamboo was broken off exactly there, it's like and the wind blows and the overblowing happens, you will get overtones. This is not something that was invented by humans or something. Of course, it is something that's happening in our voices. It's something that our brain actually just was built around. It's not the other way around. I mean, we developed our vocal system and our hearing according to these laws of vibration. And some people say, like, oh no, that's all Platonic Pythagorean bullshit. It's actually all in the cognitive sphere. And I really couldn't get that. That's something that some cognitive scientists have said, and I'm definitely opposing that. I can't understand how that could be possible.
But how about for a bat or a cicada? Do they also get the same overtone series or not?
Yeah, I think the overtone, yes. Not all instruments do. Clocks, bells, famously, they have a very different kind of overtone series. So in that sense, it's not written in stone. It's not like there's one overtone series and that's all and everything everywhere. And there are convincing also arguments that not all music has to be based on overtones, which in the West happens to be the case. Our music kind of followed the path of overtones as the harmony developed in about 1,000 years. And that's very interesting to note. And that makes us maybe believe that, oh, look, overtones, as Pythagoras said, they are the way the world works. But that's not true. Here in Asia, where so much music exists with bells and gongs, etc., the tuning is very different. Very often they don't follow overtones. They are in between these notes. So in that sense, there are so many other possibilities next to the overtone series. Yeah.
Interesting. So Amang Hung is asking one more question. Mark, what is your advice or suggestions for a female who wants to become an overtone singer?
Yeah, well, check out the women like those I've talked about. I mean, they are your best examples you can get. Natasha Nikeprelevich, Anna Maria Hefele, Chodora Tumat from Tuva, the South African ladies. There are many choirs with women. Amang is part of it herself. And listen to your own voice. Listen to your own recordings. Find out what is in my ability to do. And okay, if you hear like, well, I cannot sing so many overtones because my voice is higher, still there is quite a lot of things that you can do with it. And these examples that I just mentioned, they are some of the great examples to learn from and to understand like what are the possibilities or the limits. But you always have to figure out, what about my voice? What can I do? What do I want to do? Do I want to sound like her? Do I want to sound like her? Do I want to sound like myself? If you really want to find out, in the end, you will have your own voice and sound like your voice is made to sound from day to day, and or with the pieces that are kind of living somewhere in your mind, slumbering to come out. So let that process happen. Follow your heart. And follow the people you really admire. Yeah, that would be my advice. Paul Hindemith tried to prove that almost everything in harmony derived from the harmonic series and from different tones, but this is highly disputed. Indeed, it's like I just said, it's one of the many models. It's overtones are everywhere, but there are many other scales too. So it will be naive to believe that everything should be based on overtones or is based on overtones. But in our brain, in our mind, it's very deeply ingrained. That is for sure. In the human brain, it's our perception works all with overtones.
Yeah, and the development of equal temperament of pianos, and it's been a battle against the harmonic series in a way.
Yeah,
and it's a really fascinating story, and so interesting to hear things tuned differently. And one advantage of like electronic instruments is you can press a button and detune them and tune them in more harmonically pure ways, and you instantly hear this purity. You can hear the difference, and you realize that the compromise is necessary to make the piano sound the same in every key. There really are compromises. Switch to a pure tuning that only works in the key of C, say, and C sharp is totally off. You realize like, oh, there is something special here. And then you get off in the rabbit hole of strange tunings, and you learn that there's another way to hear. Overtone singing can help you get into that other way. Yeah,
right. There's this funny story of people who work intensively with overtones, like Ted Levin, and also Guus Janssen, a Dutch composer, and they work with overtones very intensively. And then they hear a classical piece of music, like Guus Janssen, after composing a piece for clarinets in the 1980s with overtones, and then he And then he heard the clarinet quintet of Mozart, and he said it just sounded completely out of tune
Yeah. Right.
because the tuning systems are so incompatible.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
yeah. Right. Okay.
Well,
Well,
celebrate the incompatibility. Go into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
use all the systems. I mean, explore all these systems. But yes, by all means, start with the overtones, but don't forget the others.
And read the book. Like, don't be afraid. Read, just delve into it. Find the parts that interest you. Ignore the other parts. The cover, we spent months trying to figure this out. It's this,
beautiful cover.
Yeah, beautiful whole production. I'm so proud it came out like this. And
yeah,
everybody go out and read it and listen to it and explore. And
right.
If you want more, come to the next online discussion and see if it's any different.
It will be, I think. Next week we have another one, and in a few weeks one for the European time. I will go through a few more things. What happened to my PowerPoint? Is it gone? Jane, did we still have it somewhere? Oh yeah, it is there. Okay. So David, thank you so much. Let me finish.
Get rid of me. Go back to you. Poof.
Yeah, thank you, and enjoy the clarinetists in Phoenix, Arizona, and
we'll try.
blow them away tomorrow or tonight.
We'll see, exactly. All right.
And hope to see you in Europe and New York and many more places.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah, I'm gonna add something here. We were at this one, and just for those of you who want to hear more or learn more. I got regular workshops here soon coming online. Also, we've got a workshop with the Bunun people here coming up in a few weeks' time. If you want to hear more music, you can find these albums of me under my name on Apple Music and on Spotify. But there's also, as you see, Orbake, Paraphonia is also part of those groups. So search for it out. And if you go to solo to Mark van Tongeren, you will get all of that all together. All the links are there. Please subscribe to this channel also. If you are interested in this music and you're one of these old-fashioned people like me and David, and you like CDs, then you need to go to Bandcamp to order your book. Bandcamp, markvantongeren@bandcamp.com. You can all find that through this other link, solo. And it's not a CD box. It's just a CD that will stick in the back of the book, and then you can conveniently play that on your player. Limited edition. So if you want it, you need to go there only because we don't put that in every book. After subscribing to this channel, signing up for our mailing list, etc., and you want to hear some more music on this channel, you can find the Ouroboros concert, which was a concert with a Turkish musician, a wonderful musician, and that'll be like 45 minutes, so you can listen to that or so many other things there. So thank you everyone for joining, for your questions and comments. If you have more, you can always let us know also later on. And thank you, Jane, for organizing and administrating and assisting with this presentation. And David, once again, I hope to see you soon. And good luck with the American leg of selling this book. Let's transform people's minds a bit more towards the overtones.
Exactly, and thanks so much, Mark, for inviting me tonight, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right.
See you on another plane, another tuning system, another place on the harmonic and inharmonic series of the world and our lives. See you later.